In 2012, I started learning the Arabic language from scratch, and within 10 months, I reached a level of independence that allowed me to get accepted into the Islamic University of Al-Azhar the very next year. Not only that, but the year that followed, I managed to memorize a third of the Qur'an, 12 juz, which is from Surah An-Nas to Surah Al-Furqan, and I even passed 4 years of high school in Arabic in just 1 year. Now, how did I do it? I used basically 6 powerful habits that sped up my Arabic learning 10 times faster. And if you apply this, you will start seeing results sooner than you have ever imagined, inshallah. But make sure that you watch until the end, because the 6th habit is the real game changer, the principle behind all the major goals that I achieved in my life. And this 6th habit was the most essential of all of them. So number 1, it was environmental design, all right, and environmental discipline. What do I mean by this? When I first got to Egypt, first of all, I was in the beginning of my practice of Al-Islam. You know, in the beginning of your practice, you are always stronger when it comes to your faith, when it comes to just basically detaching yourself from the dunya. So when I was 16, I was selling shoes in my school. I used to have a contact in China. I used to buy shoes from him, like Nikes, Jordans, by $30, and then I would sell them for like 60 and 70. And so instead of saving money, I would buy shoes for free for myself. So I would have like a big long line of pairs of shoes, and when I started practicing, I got rid of all of them. And people would tell me, yeah, but it's not haram, man, you're going a little too strict and whatnot. But for me at that time, it was like I wanted to turn the page. I just wanted to like start fresh. I didn't want anything that reminds me of my life before. And so, you know, let alone the fact that if you have like a lot of shoes and every day you have new shoes and you go out, that I felt, subhanAllah, now thinking back, at that time I perhaps didn't know how to put it in words, but now I know that it was related to my ego. Like if I come out and I have everyday new shoes, you know, matching with the color of my clothes and so on, you know, it would feed my ego, and I didn't want that. So the point is, in the beginning of my practice, it was very easy for me to get rid of everything. Like I said, I was 16 when I was selling those shoes. When I got to Egypt, I was 18, right? So I was still fresh in my practice. And so when I got to Egypt, I used to basically not have social media. Like literally, subhanAllah, I remember I didn't have social media at all. Like after 3 years of being in Egypt and I first came back to Spain, it was weird seeing Facebook, and subhanAllah, the feeling was crazy. So I didn't have no social media at all. I had a dummy phone, which even until today I still have. Not that same one, but I still use this environmental discipline. So I used to have a phone like this, but it was Samsung, I remember. But this type of brick phones, right? I had a phone like this, I had Skype, and I had email. And I remember I used to send an email to my mom that she would receive on her phone. And then I would tell her I'm on Skype, come so we can talk. And other than that, I didn't have any distraction at all. So this is what I call environmental discipline. Everything around me was just allowing me to not be distracted. And that's how I define focus. You are focused by default, but the thing that distracts you is distractions. So if you get rid of the distractions, then you can only find focus. And so this environmental design at that time, it was getting rid of all of these distractions. As well, the fact that I traveled and I was away from my friends, I was away from my regular amusement things that I would do in Spain. They weren't even in my mind because they weren't there. And so this environment, discipline, and design to get rid of all distractions, it really helped as a habit to increase the output and efficiency of my studies of the Arabic language. Number 2, it was my sleep routine. My sleep routine, it was from the best sleep routines that I can remember. I wasn't distracted by any distractions around. I didn't go out at night. You know, the brothers there, I don't remember going out except for maybe a few times we would go to like eat outside or something, but it was very like, it was counted with the fingers of my hands. And so I would sleep very early and wake up very early. And that gave me an incredible amount of energy for the next day to just study, be fresh, you know, and deload any tiredness that I might have in my brain from the day before through sleeping. Now, I mean, again, even until today, I still value a lot my sleep. Wallahi, sadaqa Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was right, and he said the truth when he said in the hadith, "Burika li ummati fi bukuriha," or Allahumma barik li ummati fi bukuriha. Oh Allah Azza wa Jal, put the barakah in my ummah in its early mornings. So that was, subhanAllah, I saw it. As well, I saw the hadith of La samara ba'da al-Isha, where the Prophet ﷺ, he said, you shouldn't stay up after Isha illa li musallin aw musafir, except for somebody who's praying or somebody who is traveling. The first third of the night, wallahi, if you only sleep 4 hours of deep sleep of the first third of the night, you wake up at 3 a.m. and you're like, subhanAllah, what time is it? It's 3 a.m. I'm not even tired. And then you realize, subhanAllah, this is what Allah Azza wa Jal says,
كانوا قليلا من الليل ما يهجعون.
And they used to sleep little in the night. The righteous people that used to wake up and pray long nights. If you sleep early, wallahi, you can wake up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. and you have so much energy. So that was one of the habits that helped me incredibly to increase the output and efficiency of my Arabic studies. Number 3, it was constant revision of my vocabulary. Now, at that time, we had in the markaz that I used to study at, we had a daftar at-tabyid, it used to be called. Now I replicated that, and this is what we use now in Andalus Institute, which is the same concept actually. And actually I still have that daftar at-tabyid, even though it's been more than a decade. Let me show you. SubhanAllah, I couldn't find the actual daftar at-tabyid, but I found another notebook from that time. But the point is, I used to revise my vocabulary a lot, like every day, like it's my job, like it's a shift. And so under this institute right now, we use this same method where the student, when he starts on his module 2, he gets something called vocabulary wallet. This is how I call it now. And basically in here, you have all the vocabulary that you have learned. And so all it takes is 20 minutes in the morning before starting anything. Just go over it, test yourself. I can show you, I used to be very, very diligent with my revision, with note taking and whatnot. It wasn't, at that time, everything was very manual, right? I wasn't using like social media, no internet, no nothing like that. So everything was just books, write on it, and that's it. So here, for example, I have Anwa'u al-Khabar. This is the Nahu and grammar lessons that I used to take. Al-Idafa, Asma al-Khamsa, An-Na'at, Tawkeed, and subhanAllah, now looking back, I look at it, I'm like, I don't need notes for that kind of thing, like subhanAllah, it was I would write concepts, anaytu, hurufu al-mudara'a. And so subhanAllah, I used to be very diligent with my studies, so I would have these type of notes, same with my vocab and so on. And the idea was that in my free time, when I'm not revising, memorizing new things, I take my notebooks and I open them and I just read through it, right? And this is what they call right now spaced repetition. In simple English, is basically you learn something, you attack it strongly, memorize it, test yourself. Then you leave it for a bit, then you come back, you check it again. You leave it for a bit, you come back and you check it again, and you check it often. And Al-Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah, he was asked, do you know something that I can take that will make my memory stronger? And he said, I don't know other than muwadhabat al-nadhar, continuous revision, and himmat al-rajul. And that the men should really want it. It's 2 things only. You should want it, like, really desire it. And second thing is just constant revision, constant look at the information and constant usage. Now, which this brings me habit number 4, which was speaking a lot. So this is part of the previous habit, which is when you speak a lot, what you are doing is pretty much like spaced repetition as well. You're just using it in a different way. The point is you have to keep on revising. If I memorize new vocabulary today, I need to constantly use it, meaning speak with it, look at it, read it, listen to it. And so I remember my teacher, he used to tell me in a like funny, teasing type of way. He would say, man, you talk a lot, man. You talk a lot. That's why you're good with Arabic. You talk a lot. And so I truly used to speak a lot. And at that time I was young, I was like 19, 20. I've always been goofy. I've always been kicked out of classes for speaking a lot, for just being loud and whatnot. So I used to love it. I used to love talking. I used to love in all types of contexts. Laughing, sometimes making things socially awkward because you're saying things you shouldn't say because of lack of hikmah. And subhanAllah, that was a blessing and a curse at the same time, because sometimes, I would say things that I wasn't supposed to say or whatnot. I didn't have much hikmah. But one thing is I used to speak a lot. Now I used to talk a lot, put everything into practice, and that's how I kept things in my mind. Habit number 5, and watch out for habit number 6, because that's the most important one and nothing can be applied without this. But habit number 5 was embracing mistakes. So not only I used to speak a lot, but what allowed me to speak a lot, it was that I wasn't afraid of making mistakes. I was fine with the fact that I can be laughed at, that I might say things wrongly, that my accent might sound funny, but I embraced it because I understood, having learned different languages before, that if you don't make mistakes, you won't remember those mistakes to not make them. Like, for example, I remember, subhanAllah, I still remember the road I was walking on, and I was in Paris, right? For those of you who don't know, when I was 14, I moved to Paris and I used to live in France. I stood there for 2 years. So I learned French from scratch there. And I remember I got off the bus and I was walking to the school, and there was some guy that became my friend later on. He was talking to me. And you see, in French, they say this thing where they say, tu viens ou pas? And so it means, are you coming or not? And so me, in my mind, I'm translating in Spanish, you coming or not? And so I would take the word "ha" and just translate it in my mind as no. So now when people ask me, are you coming? Without the pa, the part, I would just say pa. They would say, what you mean pa? And so it was through these type of awkward, funny, embarrassing moments. And by the way, you don't say that in French, right? Like, it's not, you don't use it in that context. You can use it in a question form, but not on an affirmation. Like, no, pa, I'm pa coming. Like, you cannot say that. You have to say, I'm not coming, right? So I still remember, subhanAllah, and I was like 14, right? I'm 31 now, and I still remember the road. I still remember. So the fact that was embarrassing, I still remember it. And so that's how I learned. When it came to Arabic as well, there are certain things I said that were embarrassing, but it allowed me to now still remember them and not forget them, right? So for example, once I was in class in Arabic and we were taking, new vocabulary, and this vocabulary was hayawan, which means animals, right? So the teacher, he said, if it means animals, what does this ayah mean?
وَإِنَّ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ لَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانُ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ.
So me, in my mind, I tried to decipher, okay, so akhirah, okay, so akhirah, so what? And then I raised my hand. I was the first one to raise my hand after the teacher asked. So he said, what does this mean? I raised my hand and I said, it means that in Al-Akhirah there's no animals. The teacher started laughing, the whole class started laughing, and it was embarrassing. And I still remember until today. But I wouldn't be able to share this fa'idah with you if I didn't make the mistake in the first place. Now, so Sadaqa man qal, it was stated that there's two types of people that don't learn, which is the person that's shy and the person that's arrogant. Because both of them don't ask questions, and both of them are scared of making a mistake. So embrace making mistakes. It will speed up your process. And number 6, which is the most important one, and I still value this as a principle and key in my life, as scholars call it in many different books that I only came to realize now, is called Jam' al-Himma. Jam'ul Himma, which basically means to gather all your attention, right? So laser focus, to gather your attention, to be focused on one particular thing. And like I said, if it wasn't because of this habit, none of the other things would be able to be applied. Now, for example, when I got first to Egypt, like I said, when I was 17, is when I started practicing. In that year, I was in my season of basketball. It was like the last few months of the season. It's stressful. The workouts are heavier. At that time, I was working out very intensively. I used to wake up early, go run, come back, sleep, then go again to the workout in the afternoon. It was a lifestyle. It was my whole life. And so I started practicing, and when you start practicing and you start like losing love for the things that, at that time I was trying to become a professional basketball player. So even though that was my goal when I started practicing, I felt again like playing basketball, for example, I'm a very competitive person and I love to trash talk when I play basketball. And I generally felt at that time that it was hurting my nafs. And subhanAllah, thinking back, I've always been like very observing of my nafs, how certain things might make my nafs feel, and then I would identify patterns and find the source of those patterns and try to get rid of those things. So at that time, basketball, it was a source of that pattern, which was arrogance and wanting to fight and wanting to trash talk and things like that. So when I started practicing, I started to like feel uncomfortable going to the basketball workouts and with my team and things like that. So I started started to want to learn the Arabic language. So now, long story short, I met someone who told me in the summer there's going to be an intensive 3-month program in Egypt for Arabic. So I said, okay, hey, I want to become a professional basketball player, but I'm gonna go for 3 months, learn some Arabic, and then come back. So that's what I did. I went for this program, the 3-month program. Now, first month when I got to Egypt for that 3-month program, first month I realized, because at that time, like I told you, I started practicing, right? So I was in a haram relationship. I said to her, if you don't accept Islam, if you don't accept Islam, then we gotta separate and whatnot. So she didn't accept Islam, we separated. And so I got to Egypt, and now I've seen all these brothers with their wives and whatnot, and I started to feel the need of marriage. And after the first month, I was like, yo man, I can't focus. SubhanAllah, I remember I was sitting in between Maghrib and Isha, and there was this brother, he came and saw me. He says, SubhanAllah, what's going on with you? I always see you like, you look down and whatnot. And so I told him I want to get married and this and that, boo boo boo. He said, okay, come back to my apartment after Isha and I will, we can talk about it. Long story short, he gave me his debit card. He said, yo, grab yourself a ticket, go and meet this sister and whatnot. And so that's what I did. I literally, in the first month of that 3 intensive month program, I left for 2 weeks to meet a family, to like calm myself down, like, okay, I'm gonna get married, khalas, let me just do my studies. So after those 2 weeks, I came back, I completed the program, and then is when I realized, yeah, I think I have to come back to Egypt and actually study full time. So I went for 4 months, saved some money, and then got married and went to Egypt. Now, when I got to Egypt, I thought in my mind that I'm going to find a basketball team in Egypt and at the same time do my lessons. I started doing like long days of studies, then at night I will have to like grab some train and go to this place and that place. I didn't have money either, so I couldn't do like taxi trips and things like that. So I was going to the train of Alexandria, and then like, you guys know how it is going out in Egypt. For those who know it, it was just like heavy on my nafs. I would go to the workout, tired, now I have to get back home, sleep late, wake up late. Then I was like, subhanAllah, this is 2 different types of lifestyles. They just clash with each other. Becoming a professional athlete, becoming a professional student of knowledge don't go together. So that's when I decided, you know what, khalas, this is going to be my destiny, inshallah. I want to become a professional student of knowledge. At that time, that's where my mind was at. I said, khalas, that's what I'm doing. I left everything, full focus, laser focus. And at that time, everything else that wasn't learning the Arabic language and studying, it was a distraction for me. So this habit, later on, I came to realize that the scholars, they very, very often talk about it. Jam'ul ham. Ibn Jawzi mentions in his book Sayyid al-Khatir that if you want to really like seek knowledge, you need to do Jam'ul ham. If you want to seek knowledge, you have to focus, meaning you need to you need to gather all your ham, all your attention on that thing, and everything else is a distraction. So these were the 6 habits that allow me to have a super efficient output when it comes to my Arabic studies. I hope you use them. Assalamu alaikum.